So I'm here because I had some moments this week where as you know, like my business is at a place where I've been working at it for some time. I had an issue with my business partner, and then now I'm focusing on kind of recuperating with these new business partners. And I've had a couple of close calls where I've had some cases that would have gotten me, like, basically recovered the millions of dollars that I had before, and moving these relationships from the previous partnership to this new partnership has had some issues, mainly because it's a little bit more complicated. There's attorneys involved, and we've talked about, like, some of the procedural stuff that needs to be in place. And outside of those logistics and how I've hit some roadblocks and being able to kind of get back to where I was, I have some resistance naturally to getting going, right? Because there is some negative reinforcement when it comes to, like, why do this again if I'm going to feel bad about doing it, right? Like if the disappointment. And so I know we spoke about the disappointment of, like, Schrodinger's cat, where if you don't open the box, if you don't do the thing, the cat doesn't die, where, like, in, like, quantum physics, the cat is both alive and dead.
If I don't try, I won't fail.
If I don't try, I won't fail, exactly. And I'm at the place now where, like, I'm still feeling some of that, like, ennui, some of that apathy, like the desire to just kind of, like, coddle myself and not do. And so I'm discouraged, exactly, because I feel like I've put in earnest effort for years now, and even when I did achieve and I kind of let my foot off the gas because I was just waiting for, like, the thing to sell, then I had a maneuver that I knew I was exposing myself in a way that, like, I knew what I was doing, that I was giving up a lot of my power. And so now I've had some conversations. I've had better rapport. I have better rapport with this business partner. I'm not in the position I was before. That being said, I haven't had the level of success with this partnership as I had with the other, because for a variety of reasons, but one of them being that this one's a little bit more complex and a little less more complex, and therefore less structured, because it's just different than the other partnership. So I'm feeling discouraged because I want to be able to get some of these cases that have been close calls closed, but there's so many moving parts and there's very little things in my control. And so when I did the exercise of, using the clean language or the metaphor therapy way or the emotional control way of looking at what I was feeling, I was visualizing getting up and doing the things that I needed to do. And I was actually in bed, hadn't started my day, and I felt like I was looking at myself, like, just getting up out, because I was thinking about, like, maybe making a presentation and stuff like that, but it wasn't even like that was, like, a little bit too far up. Like, the feeling was when I was in bed and just getting up out of bed and doing the thing, like, just getting up and starting my day, in terms of, like, I wasn't depressed. I know what that feels like. I wasn't sad. I just was resistant to taking the actions that I know are necessary to be able to get the outcome that I wanted. It's almost like a horse that doesn't want to move forward, right? Like, it just stalls, and it's just, or like a mule or something that's just like, no, I'm not moving. So what I actually felt when I was there was similar to the experience that I've spoke to you about before, like an elephant that's chained to the ground, and it can't break the chain. But it was different this time. It didn't feel like the chain was actually holding me back, or that experience of, like, it's strong enough to break the chain, but it doesn't, because it's bound by habit more so than by the chain. it felt like what I actually felt was like um, sandbags on top of me. Like that's all that was to basically get to what I was actually feeling. Just like I was laying there and there was these sandbags on top of me. And the sandbags, when I just sat with it, and I asked, what do the sandbags mean or what do they do? They're there to protect me. And they're there to like shield me. And so when I sat with that, and it's like they're almost like a womb, like trying to keep me from feeling, um, feelings of overwhelm or disappointment, or almost like healing myself because I may be being hard on myself or something like that. And then when I said, well, what can I do to be able to take the actions that I want and still feel safe, if that's what I'm looking for, is to feel safe. And what the sand said, I asked the sandbags that. What the sandbags said, and I stayed with it to make sure I wasn't adulting the problem, that I wasn't consciously trying to fix it, that I just waited until something kind of emerged. And what came up, like, just popped into my head was, that, like, it wasn't so much a solution as it was more like as I lay there, time is ticking and more sand is being poured on me. And then I felt like, okay, like that isn't a solution. It didn't feel like a solution. It just felt like kind of like me being aware of the longer I stay in that place, the more sand gets poured on, and it's kind of like, inertia, right? Like the the fact that I'm not moving is compounding. And finally, the last bit was when I said, when I asked about, okay, so who's the me under the sandbags? And this is kind of where I said I got to talk to Dr. S about this. It's a me that's naked and vulnerable, and so the sandbags are protecting me from feeling that feeling of being naked and vulnerable and insecure or uncertain. So that's what I had, and I said, well, I think it would be interesting to deal with this because I think this is like really if I break down where the area of my life that I feel like has been the kind of like the thorn at my side, like the thing that's been my main issue in since overcoming my depression and being like having dreams and hopes and all that, I feel like I'm 90%, 95% of the way to feeling like so great and self-actualized all the time, but kind of like the thing that's still rattling around is this issue of like not being fully capable of continuing when I feel discouraged, or when I feel vulnerable, like not being able to, like I kind of like wrap myself in this place of like, like self-coddling, right? And so that's what I got from the sandbags, is that it's kind of like it is not just protecting me, but it's also like nurturing me. And so I want to feel how I can feel protected and nurtured from the sandbags and the sand and whatever it is. I know that the sandbag is doing its job very well, but I want to know how I can have those feelings or have a productive way of having those needs met while being able to do the things that I want to do and feel safe there. So that's why I came in.
So what else can you say about wanting to feel safe?
The word certainty comes up. Like, for me, safety means feeling that when I do an action, it will produce the result that I want. So for me, safety is almost like predictability and like a knowingness of what's to come. And and as an entrepreneur, that's where, because I've dealt with so much uncertainty and the numbers game and all that, for me to feel safe, there's a financial amount of money that I feel like I want to be able to have to feel like a safety cushion, where right now it's probably starting to get to a point where I'm getting to a point where, I need to start making some decisions, because I want to feel more sure that I'm not wasting my time, and that the effort that I'm putting in is going to pay dividends. So I think it's like a safety and a certainty in knowing that the labor that I'm putting in is going to pay dividends. So
you want to be certain to not be disappointed. What else do you know about wanting to feel safe?
It's a matter of trust. I want to feel like I can trust myself and trust that things will work out. There's like a slight pessimism that comes around that makes me feel unsafe. And so I want to feel like I can trust that things will work out.
Pessimism.
Yeah.
Is pessimism the same as safe, or is that something different? Unsafe.
Oh, is pessimism the same as unsafe? No, they're different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the three things that you've said that stand out the most is feeling naked and vulnerable, sandbags protecting and nurturing you, wanting to feel safe and not be disappointed.
Yeah.
So, in the past 10 minutes, as you've been telling me these different points, showing me these different pieces of the puzzle, have you been having any certain kind of feeling or not?
I mean, even the feeling of right now, feeling like, oh, I've dealt with this issue in so many different ways.
Better question. Where's the information coming from inside of you? Is it coming from your toes? What you've been telling me about, where is this coming from?
Like what part of my body?
Yeah. Where inside, as you've been telling me about fear of disappointment, wanting to feel safe, wanting to avoid uncertainty.
I feel it in my, deep in my chest.
So as you feel it deep in your chest, when you feel it deep in the chest, take some time to discover when that's deep in the chest. When that's deep in the chest, how deep can that deep be? Deep in the chest.
I feel it in my rib cage, underneath my pectoral muscles, just beneath, where my pectorals meet my abdomen, my ab muscles. I feel it there, and then it kind of and in my forehead, and it feels deep in the sense that it feels like a burrow, like a place inside that I can retreat into, like a burrow.
Place inside, a burrow I can retreat into.
Mm-hmm.
A place inside.
Mm-hmm.
place inside, like a place you can hide, and in a burrow and burrow. Anything else about that burrow?
It's pitch black. It's totally dark.
And as it's totally dark, as it's totally dark, meditate on dark, look at dark, get to know, be with, and know, and see, and observe that kind of dark, taking all the time you need to explore, know, and discover all about that kind of dark.
It feels really peaceful.
Huh. Say more.
It feels like a place where worries don't exist. Like a place where it's like for a second I had the visual of like a little cot, in like a little, like a burrow inside of a tree or something, like, but I know it's totally dark, like pitch black, but I kind of know that there's like a little mattress on the floor and a pillow and like a blanket, and it's warm and like cozy, and it's the feeling that I like, that darkness, that cot, that is the feeling that I get from when I'm in bed and I don't want to, like when I'm escaping the world. It feels like this is the place that I go.
And so when it's dark, and did you say pitch black?
It's actually pitch black, even though it's weird. Like it's pitch black,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm aware of what's in there, and so I get an image of like, it's almost like a children's book illustration image of the cot being like inside of a tree that is big enough for me to fit, but just like it's small enough where I feel like it's real cozy and it's warm in there, and there's a mattress on the floor and like a comforter, like a blanket comforter, and a pillow, and all of it's kind of warm. And but even though I know those things are there, like the actual inside of the space is totally pitch black, and so it's like I have that children's book image of what's in there, so that I know what's in there, but in the actual space, when I like step into it and I go deep into the feeling in my chest, it feels like a darkness, a pitch black darkness that's really peaceful and really safe.
And do you know where you are in the darkness, or you can't tell?
When I described the contents inside of the tree cot burrow, like it pulls me out of it, and I'm like describing like almost like the children's image, the children's book image.
Mm-hmm.
When but I can easily switch back to being inside of the burrow, and it's just a darkness it just reminds me of like being inside of a cave when like I've gone spelunking in different parts where there's caves in like Tennessee and stuff like that. And I remember the tour guide, at one point we turned off all of our lanterns or lights, and I remember being able to close my eyes and open my eyes, and there was no difference. It was just as black with my eyes closed as they were open, and was like the blackest, darkest place I've ever been, and it feels like that.
So take some time to look at, meditate, get to know this pitch black darkness, as well as the objects and things that you see, couch and the different things you see there.
Yeah, I felt such peace and such like splendor, and I felt I heard sounds like like almost like Native American sounds in my, I guess, like my auditory imagination. I don't know, but it was like the silence had like these like sounds that they didn't really make any sense. Like they were just like yeah, 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 like you know, Native American like chanting sounds, or Native Indian, whatever. And it just felt really, I don't know, I felt like I just fell into like a meditative hypnotic trance there for a second. Like it just felt so, yeah, like I meditated, I don't know. And I just fell into that place where I just felt such peace, and like the sounds were kind of like, I feel like there were like emotions that were being like expressed through imaginary sounds, or sound that I was hearing it, and it feels more like, it feels more and more like an expression of like emotions in a different way than how I've been expressing them, you know, and like a more of a listening of my emotions.
And as it's more of a listening of your emotions,
Yeah.
as this is a listening of your emotions, take some time again to meditate on the darkness, observing, hearing, listening, and being in that space, taking all the time to be there.
now it's a lot more visual, so I'm still kind of in the same space. But now, like, I'm seeing more and more of moments that I feel like slightly uncomfortable or inadequate or unsafe, um, and but I'm seeing them, and they're not like big deals, like they're not. They're just kind of moments where it's like a little awkward, or I just kind of like I'm in a social situation where like I just kind of rather go home, and or I don't feel like being social, or um, like kind of like small little things that are um, I don't like what I'm wearing. I mean, if it makes me, I feel like I look lumpy, or it doesn't hang on me well, or whatever. And like those little, like almost like petty little things that are coming up as like visuals, but not so much the visual of the thing itself, but more the visual of like how I, like almost like inside of my head, looking out into the world when I'm in those moments.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm like in like almost like inside of my head, like looking out into the world from those moments, like almost like looking at it like on a like almost as if I'm transported inside of the head of the person that's in that moment, and I'm looking at it like almost like, even though I'm not the active person moving my body, or I'm not in it, I'm like inside of the head watching it, almost like a movie going on, but like a virtual reality movie where I'm like inhabiting the person, and I'm seeing the things. I also see like an ability to like, I see like hands rolling over like shoulder blades from like my perspective again, like another perspective, but it's like kind of like a petting, and they're both petting at the same time, and it feels like a nurturing, like of those moments that I just described, where I was like, uncomfortable at a party, or didn't like outfit because I think I look fat, or that makes me look like I feel uncomfortable because I feel like I have man boobs or something, um, and and it's kind of like as I sit in that darkness, like these visuals of like petting shoulder blades, and like kind of like not hugging really, but just kind of like stroking the back from like the shoulders down to like the mid back, along the shoulder blades, and just kind of like like compassion and like a nurturing. Yeah.
And when sitting in the darkness, how long have you been sitting in the darkness?
How long have I been sitting in the darkness?
And as you're sitting in the darkness, how long have you been sitting there?
How long have I been sitting in the darkness? How long have I been sitting in the darkness? I feel myself getting emotional and crying. Um, and the image that came up, I don't have an answer for how long I've been here, but the image that came up was that of the children's book, of the furniture, not the furniture, the mattress and the bed, like down comforter and the pillow. And my instinct is that it's like since I was a kid, but the reason that image came up wasn't because that's necessarily the answer, but more so what came up from that question was I've made myself really comfortable in this place.
Say that again.
I've made myself really comfortable in this place.
And again.
I've made myself really comfortable in this place.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that I see as like, oh, I don't feel depressed anymore, and it's yeah, to an extent, yes, that's true, but now it just felt like, oh, but there's a sadness within me that's still there, but I've just learned to be comfortable with it and be and exist in it. And when it comes, I've learned to just burrow into the darkness and not, and just get comfortable in it. So it just makes me think, like, as much as as I feel like I've done progress, and as much as I want to be a leader and like help others and all that, there's an aspect of it where it makes me feel like inauthentic or kind of fraudulent, that I still kind of feel that I'm in that place to an extent sometimes. And I don't want to be there anymore.
I feel safe in that darkness.
I feel safe in that darkness.
And I don't want to be there anymore.
I don't want to be there anymore.
Anything else when you feel safe in that darkness and you don't want to be there anymore? Anything else? And as you feel safe in that darkness and you don't want to be in that darkness, as you don't want to be in that darkness and you feel safe in the darkness, when you feel safe in the darkness and you don't want to be in the darkness, what can happen?
When I feel safe in the darkness and I don't want to be safe in the darkness anymore, what can happen? I like my first instinct was, oh, I can turn on a light. I can just turn on a light and I can see inside the cot, and I can, the darkness will go away and I'll be able to see the furniture and all that. But it feels like an adult solution.
Correct.
It feels like I'm consciously trying to make sense of it.
Right.
And
trying to fix it.
I'm trying to fix it. Yeah. And
so the answer might be nothing happens next. So putting aside the adult solution, putting aside the attempt to fix, and just being in that space you've been in so long, as you feel safe there and you don't want to be there anymore, what can happen? And the answer may be nothing, or maybe something, and just watch and wait and see what comes to mind with the question. When you don't want to be there any longer, what can happen?
what came up and made me get emotional was that I felt like, instead of consciously trying to, like, oh, if it's dark, I could just turn on a light and it'll fix it. What came up as you were asking the question was, I could leave.
Oh.
And when I said that, I just felt like a pang of, like, worry, of like, oh, but what if I feel unsafe, and, you know, what if, and I just felt like, you know, who would I be if I, like, this has been part of who I am for so long. And I just thought about how many areas of my life I'm not fully expressed in because of this, you know?
I can leave, and I'm afraid to.
Yeah, I can leave this, and I'm afraid to.
Yeah.
It's almost like I enjoy the sadness of it, you know? I enjoy the isolation of it. I enjoy the, like, self-coddling and like wrapping myself in the blanket of, you know, being in this dark place.
You're wrapping yourself in a blanket when it feels like you're coddling.
Yeah.
Coddled and wrapped in a blanket. Coddled and wrapped in a blanket. Coddled and wrapped in a blanket. What kind of coddling? What kind of blanket? When coddled in a blanket like that, what kind of blanket comes to mind about coddled in a blanket? What kind of blanket might that be? Take all the time you need, and all the time you need. You know about the kind of coddling and the kind of blanket that can coddle in just that way.
Oh. I feel like I'm bundled up in a blanket that's warm, and one of those, like, I don't know what material that is, but it's kind of like microfiber or something, like really, like those, like, furry blankets, and then on top of that is like a down comforter, and they're both warm, and I'm just kind of like wrapped into it and like nestled and like warm, and it's like that warm where it's cold outside, so you kind of feel that it's cold outside, but you feel cocooned in the warmth of being inside of the blankets, and I feel a level of comfort in being wrapped up into it, but as I was feeling that and like trying to ask like what kind of blanket, and I just saw my like flashes of different areas of my life where like I so much want to be fully expressed, and I so much have courage to want to do the thing and just be real, you know, like just be authentic and fully expressed, and I just want to fully express myself, and, you know, like, I don't care about failure, I don't care about looking stupid, I don't care about what people think, like, just so fucking, like, proud of certain things in my life, and then just having this aspect of my life where it's like, still feeling like, you know, like I need to be in that place, you know, of being wrapped up in that blanket, because I'm like afraid of being outside of it, and what's out there, you know, and like you know, and like both being afraid of it and then also being really excited about what could happen if I just let all that shit go, and how happiness could really be fucking real, you know? Because I pretend sometimes, you know, and like, it's why I isolate myself, is because it's like, it's like a safe place, you know, to be able to go and just be in this like dark blanketed place, you know. It's just like a place to kind of like feel more like safe and in touch with myself, because being out in the real world, like, if it just makes me think of those moments that I described, like the party, like being at the party, or being you know, wearing clothes where I feel like kind of insecure in, or I feel fat or whatever, and like the shoulder rubbing, coddling, like nurturing thing. Like, there's so many moments, I guess, that I feel inadequate or vulnerable or unsafe, you know? And like, I don't know, like, I'm, as much as I earnestly want those things, like, it's of like to be fully expressed and to like, you know, and on one level, like, I know I don't care, like, I want to let it all hang out, like, I want to, you know, like, I don't care if I live my entire life, like, and I don't fucking figure it out, like, I want to earnestly be putting in effort and be just out giving it my all, but I end up going back to this place because, and so it's almost like I can't be fully expressed because I'm not um really present in the way that I want to be, because I keep on going back to this place because everything feels unsafe, you know? Or anytime I feel insecure, I go to this place, or like I come here to like nurture myself, I rather be out in the real world and feel the insecurity, and I just want to leave this place. I don't want to be here anymore. And so all that kind of came up as I was thinking about what the blankets were like. So as I was feeling that, I was also crying because I had that entire flood of emotion coming, and all those thoughts coming all at once.
And so excited about the possibilities and afraid of letting go.
Yeah.
Excited about the possibilities and afraid of letting go. And what else can you say about letting go? When you're excited about the possibilities and afraid of letting go, what can you say about letting go?
I feel like I've learned this lesson in other areas of my life, the lesson of letting go. It was a hard lesson, but it's a practice, you know? Like, you gotta continue to learn it. And so, what I feel about letting this go is, I feel like when I've learned this in other areas of my life, it's like letting go of relationships or people, or like certain business things, or, you know, times in my life, or like certain lifestyle, or like my childhood or my adolescence, or, you know, whatever, my 20s. And I am, but this is different because this is like, I mean, it's been with me for so long, it's so core of who I am.
Right.
That letting this go, it's like, I don't know how I would even be in the world. And so it's almost like a total because as like effective as I've become over the years, and like efficient and like self-actualized, like there's always been this like place I retreat into, and this like isolation, and this like kind of like melancholiness that I kind of carry. And it's almost like my method to reconnect with my emotions, and kind of like when you watch a movie and or because you know it's a sad movie and it's gonna make you feel sad, and you kind of that's what you want. It's kind of like that feeling, almost like that pleasure of feeling sad, of feeling like nostalgic or whatever. It's like that's what this feels like. Is like I don't like. There's a part of me that doesn't want to let that go. If I'm honest.
And when it's like a melancholy that you carry. When it's like a melancholy that you carry, when you carry that melancholy, you carry it like what? Like a melancholy that you carry like what?
My initial answer was like a sandbag, but that feels like, again, an adult kind of solution. It feels like a conscious explanation, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. Yeah. What carrying a melancholy? What is it like carrying a melancholy? What came up was like a what came up when I just sat with it was the like a pair of sunglasses, but then I was like, that's not heavy enough because it feels heavy. And then I said, well, maybe it's like an umbrella and like it provides shade, but then it's like, no, it's kind of like sunglasses. And then it came up, and then it's like, this is what it feels like, and it feels right. It feels like a motorcycle helmet that's a closed-faced motorcycle helmet with a visor, that the visor is down, and it's kind of like I can't see my periphery that well. It makes the world look a little dim and like, tinted, and it's like carrying around the motorcycle helmet all around my head. That feels authentic. Yeah.
So it would be more right to ask how long a closed-face motorcycle helmet has been on your head, or more right to ask what a motorcycle helmet wants, or is there something else about that?
The closed-faced motorcycle helmet wants, or when did it begin? Let me see. I don't know which one is the most authentic question. Or how long?
Maybe a better question might be, what can happen now that you know about this helmet? And what would you like the helmet to know?
I'd like the helmet to know that I'm not on a motorcycle. And
given that you're not, what do you want the helmet to know?
that I don't need it to protect me.
So take some time to send that message to the helmet. Take some time to tell the helmet. Let the helmet know there was a time you were needed. There was a time you were helpful. Thank you for your help. And if you're going to tell the helmet you don't need it, perhaps you can tell it that you don't need it in a way that maybe it doesn't have to just disappear and go off somewhere else, but can slowly be removed or changed, or the visor open, or something minor movement with it, instead of just tossing it to the side of the road. So what can happen as you let the helmet know you no longer need it?
There's a big part of me that wants to it's angry at the helmet and just wants to rip it off and throw it away.
Yeah.
But I feel compelled to now ask the motorcycle helmet some questions because I feel like before it was kind of unresponsive, and I feel like now that I've acknowledged it in terms of, I don't know, something's kind of shifted, and I feel like I'd be more open to some inquiry now, where it could give me some feedback in terms of what it like me for me to know, and
So take some time to hear what it wants you to know.
so what came up just now was me thinking about my the helmet was, I was thinking about my commitment to growth and my commitment to constantly improving myself and doing personal development and self-help and reading books on personal effectiveness and challenging myself and wanting to have a great business life and artistic life and relationship life and relationship with my family members and friends and constantly reading books and doing coaching or seminars or workshops or therapy, and how many, I mean, no exaggeration, hundreds of books and dozens of different types of therapy and coaching and whatever, and how that's a continuous process that I'm committed to. And that came up even though I know I was supposed to ask the helmet some questions, and it was, I think it kind of I felt almost reversed engineered. The question was that the helmet thinks it's protecting me because it thinks I'm weak, and it's not aware that I'm actually strong now.
Right.
And so the helmet is almost just, it wants to make sure that, a weak person may think it's strong. And, my job is to protect you, not to listen to you, because you're weak and you'll fall apart. And so it's almost it wasn't so much me asking questions of the helmet, it was me just kind of saying, hey, I'm the 1% of the 1% of the 1% in terms of people that are willing to look at themselves and be honest in terms of just, be it what may, I'm going to continue to do this inner exploration and continue to strengthen and continue to search and continue to fortify who I am internally, and I'm just looking to be strong.
And as you let the helmet know that you're not weak like you might have been before when you needed it, and you let the helmet know who you are now and what you need and don't need, watch and wait and see what can happen, if anything.
Yeah, I see an image of a helmet, like, and have you seen like those motion capture, like when they show like a cricket that is captured by like a red ant colony, and then it's kind of like it like almost disintegrates, like it melts away because it's eaten by the ants. Well, what I actually see is a helmet, and it's just like on like a floor, and the helmet's like, you know, a motorcycle helmet with like streaks of color, and like it's like a white helmet with like streaks of like red and purple and yellow, and it's kind of like stylized, and it's sitting on on like a polished concrete floor. And the reason I mentioned the cricket and the ants is because if you've looked at those stop motion, it kind of like the cricket will just be like starting to be consumed by all the ants, and it'll like kind of like dissolve into the floor and of ants, and then just kind of disappear. Well, the motorcycle on the concrete helmet looks like it's just kind of like dissolving and melting into and spreading across the concrete. And so I see the colors of the helmet, and the white and the streaks of purple, and it's kind of like going from being this helmet to just like a streak of paint and color on the concrete floor, the polished concrete floor, and now it's just kind of like dissolved, and almost like in that same like stop motion, like just in a rapid dissolution onto the floor. And that's what I see.
And how long could it take for it to dissolve completely?
It's fully dissolved. What I see now is just the paint and the color streaks on the floor. And my, like, I even want to like squeegee that or something, but I feel like I'm forcing that.
Yeah, let's honor that and leave it for now.
Yeah, okay.
Let's do that for now. And without that helmet, what can happen? Without that helmet, what can be different? Without that helmet, what difference does it make?
I'm very conscious of my body, like, in the sense that I feel I'm very much in my body at the moment. Like, I feel the air on my skin, and I feel like the ground and the chair on my back and on my rear, and like the I feel like the soles of my feet on the ground, and I just feel very much in my body. I'm very present. And
and so just do that. Feel be in your body and feel present. Just be in your body and feel present.
feel like I could look around more. I feel like the motorcycle helmet was gave me tunnel vision,
Mm-hmm.
and it also had a visor. And now, like, I can see the sky, and I drive a convertible, and I almost always, like, I would say 80 to almost 90% of the time I have the top down. And the reason I do is because I love being able to look at the sky when I drive, and at night, or like, so whenever, I don't know, it's like almost like endless possibility. And also I like being able to think, like, if I'm having a problem, or if I'm ever getting too big for my britches, or thinking like I'm hot stuff, I look up, and it kind of like humbles me, both if I'm having a good day or a bad day or whatever, because I think, like, looking up, it's like that goes on forever, right? Like, the universe is expanding infinitely. And in a weird way, when my top is down, like, I'm connected to it, and like there's no separation between me and that infinite expansion that is the universe, heading in every direction. And me zipping around in my convertible, it's like I'm connected to that, because I'm not in a bubble. There's no separation between me. There's no roof, right? Like, there's no separation between me and that infinite expansiveness. And I have the visual of removing the helmet being a connection to that experience, where with the helmet on, I was not capable of feeling that feeling that I feel when in the real world. I feel it when I'm driving around in my convertible, but in with the motorcycle helmet on, and now with it removed, and with the question, what could happen, I just feel like that infinite expansiveness of the sky, and like the possibility, and like the both feeling really connected, and really I want to say small, but I don't mean that in a derogatory, I mean like in a negative sense. I mean like small in the sense of, like, a small piece of this infinite expansiveness, but it's like, but it wouldn't be a universe without that small piece, like that I don't know, it's kind of like that quote, like, you're not the ocean, you're not a drop in the ocean, but you are the ocean in a drop. It's that feeling. It's that quote by Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean, but you are the ocean in a drop. And that's what I mean by, like, yeah, it's, I'm this small, Homo sapien ape with consciousness, and these ideas, and this ego and all this stuff, and it's like here for X amount of time, and just one more ape on this rock, spinning around the ball of gas, zooming through infinite space, swirling around other stars, and inside of this galaxy, inside of infinite galaxies, in this infinitely large space that's just constantly expanding, and and I'm just a speck within all that. But it's like that quote, it's like it both makes me feel small and huge, and like, yeah, so that's what I'm feeling without the helmet.
So just stay with that for a bit. Connected, being in your body, feeling present, feeling large and small in a positive way, connected. And just take some time to experience those feelings and experiences in your body, being present, feeling present, and just let that out.
I'm just so happy. Oh man. uh, I feel like, like when you watch sports and you see like now the World Cup is going on, or like the NBA championship, when people win a championship and they're like hugging a trophy and they're just like happy, like they've accomplished something, and they're just hugging a trophy or like hugging their teammates, or yeah, I just feel like that image comes up, those images come up, but I also just feel like just a simple joy of just being, like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, yeah, it's a simple joy, like there's nothing, yeah.
Feels like a good place to stop. What do you think?
Yeah.